to the podium of the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker will be the Reverend Dr. Robert M. Waterman, who is the pastor of Antioch Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York. And his topic is, When You Forget What You Are Called to Do. And Reverend Dr. Waterman has been the pastor of Antioch Baptist Church in Brooklyn, New York since 2003. He is an author, a mechanical engineer, an educator, a community organizer, and a business owner. He earned his doctorate degree in ministry. He has served as the president of the African American clergy and elected officials of Brooklyn Incorporated for nearly a decade. He is known as the preacher of thunder, so fasten your seatbelts, as he encourages his congregation to know God so that the hearts and thereby lives can be changed. His commitment to Antioch is demonstrated by his relocation of his family to the Bedford-Stuyvesant community. He and his wife Lola have one daughter. So please join with me to welcome the Reverend Dr. Robert M. Waterman to the podium.
God bless you, my brothers and sisters. I'm not going to be long, but how many of you are really serious about kingdom growth? How many of you really don't want to waste your time? Let me ask you one more question. How many of you know how much time you got left? So if you don't really want to waste time, and you don't know how much time you got left, then why are you wasting time? When I forget what I'm called to do, the government owns and runs your church and its doctrine. The 501c3 tax-exempt organization. Am I a church or a cult? So now that's really just helping you. I just want to help you. I just really want you to look at the dynamics that is happening. Me forgetting, me a part of a government system, and I don't even know if I'm a church or cult because I don't know who I am. How do we go to the next sentence? All right, Ephesians 4. Everybody know that. Take out your book, Bibles real quick. I know there's a timer on, but Ephesians 4, everybody know. Therefore, the prisoner of the Lord beseech you that ye walk worthy of the vocation wherein ye are what? Look at somebody saying, are you walking in your calling? I'm not talking about your title that you picked up. I'm not talking about your title that somebody gave you. I'm talking about you walking in your calling. It says, with all lowliness and meekness, watch this, and long suffering, forbearing one another in love. Right? And devouring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is what? One body, one Spirit, even as ye are called in what? One hope of your what? That means if you're not in your calling, there cannot be one body and one Spirit because you're out of order. Look at the neighbor and say, you're out of order. It says here, one God and Father of who? All, who is above and what? And in who? You are. That means he's what? The Father of, above all, through all, and in you. But unto every one of us is given what? Grace according to the measure of what? The gift of who? Christ. Wherefore, he said, when we ascend up on high, what? He led captivities, what? Captives, and gave gifts to who? Now that we are ascending, what is it that he also descended first into the lower parts of the earth? He that descended to the same also that ascend up far above all heavens, that he might what? Fill all things. He gave somewhat, 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 somewhat. Okay, somewhat apostles. That means everybody can't be in.
Amen.
If everybody's apostles, we don't got no pastors, preachers, teachers, and pastors. If everybody's pastors, we ain't got no ministers and teachers. For the perfecting of what? For the work of the what? Did y'all get that? Perfecting of the working of, perfecting of what? Working of what? For the edifying of the what? Body of Christ. Right? Until we all come into what? Of the what? And there's a difference between people coming together with no knowledge. Hosea says what? We err for the lack of. Until we all come into the unity of faith and the knowledge of who? The Son of God, until the perfect man, unto the measure of the statue of the fullness of Christ. Ephesians 4:14 says what? That we henceforth be no more what? Tossed and to and fro and carried away with what? With every what? By the sledge of what? Men and cunning craftiness, whereby they what? To do what? By speaking what? By speaking the truth in what? Love. May grow up unto him what? In what? All things. Which is the head, even Christ, from whom? The whole body do what? Fit, joint. We're trying to create something here with American Clergy Leadership Conference. We're not fitting together because we got barriers in the way. You're sitting together, but you're not fitting together. We're sitting, yeah, we're sitting. We sit for lunch, dinner, breakfast. We come in here and we sit together, but we're not fitting together because we got too many barriers that are in the way. Look at the neighbor and said, I might be in the way. From henceforth the whole body fitly joined together, compact by which every joint supplieth according to the effectual working in the measure of every part, making of the what? And edifying of itself in what? Acts 11:1 says this, and apostles and brethren that were in Judea heard that the who? And also what? The word. Matthew, I'm giving y'all some scriptures because y'all gonna need this. Matthew 22:17. Tell us that what thinketh that it is lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not. But Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, why tempt ye me, ye hypocrites? Show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And he said unto them, whose is the image and superscription? They said unto him, Caesar's. Then he said unto them, render therefore unto who? Caesar the things which are, and unto God, the things that are who? I want to talk about 501c3. And I want to help you not to get caught up in the enemy's trap while you can't do ministry because you're waiting for money. Here we go. The First Amendment protects the rights to Americans. Religious leaders include to speak out on religious, moral, and political issues. However, houses of worship and other nonprofit entities classified under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Service Tax Code are barred from endorsing or opposing candidates for public. If the IRS determines that your house of worship has engaged in an unlawful what? Intervention, that it what? It can revoke the institution's tax-exempt status or levy significant fines on the house of worship or its leader. How many of you got 501c3s? How many of your churches are 501c3s? How many of you got 501c3s outside of your church? How many of you know how to use your 501c3 outside of your church? How many of you know that you don't need the 501c3 for your church? Because the government system wants you to get caught into the 501c3 for your church, but the First Amendment has already spoken to you and indicate that you really don't need a 501c3 to be a institution or a church. Now, you have to understand here, the principles of the Bible. Any politics that takes the Bible seriously must begin the account of the creation in the book of Genesis. Here, humanity is created in the image and the likeness of God. From the biblical perspective, no individual or group, whether nation, race, tribe, can be what? Considered superior to another, as all people were created as what? In whose image? Likewise, these basics becomes the basis of the entire legal and ethical system that follows in all that the members of the community are considered equal in the eyes of the law. Genesis what? Further assigns humanity and the task of caretakers and stewards and creation, which God calls good. Jesus as a prophet and political philosopher. In the New Testament, Jesus declares what? Identifies himself with the prophetic tradition. Indeed, as one of the few passages in which he speaks of a final judgment at the end of human history. He begins to this identification explicit. In this dramatic passage, Jesus outlines the standards by which the entire nation shall be judged. I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me, and I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me, and I was in prison. You came to me. How many of you do that? How many of you appoint somebody else to do it? I say unto you, as you did, as one of the least of these brethren, if you did it to me, here once again, obtaining the right relationship with God is equipped with what? Concrete acts of compassion by the less fortunate members of society, and the principle is applied by Jesus to entire nation as well as individuals. The country built on biblical values and principles pleases and wins the favor of God. A country. Look at the neighbor and say, stop straying. Deuteronomy 31:6. Be what? Take what? Don't be what? Look at somebody and say, stop punking out. Our communities are suffering because we are not strong. We don't take courage. We are intimidated. We don't give to them a second thought because of God. Your God is striding ahead of you. He's right there with you. He won't let you down. He won't leave you. The problem with most of us are that we are paid preachers for photo op. We are photo opportunity. They pay us to take a picture, but we have no works behind it. A bunch of people coming together, but we have no action because the young people are still suffering. The elderly people are getting kicked out of their houses. Their houses are being brought. I don't know what community that you're living in, but in my community, people are knocking on the doors with suitcases of money trying to buy the elderly people out of their house. Young people are on the corner. You know why? The dropout rate in school is so high that the education is no longer in the building because you got dysfunctional teachers trying to teach something to children that are not even in the same. And then we have the pastors who are called to communities that have sold out for a bill of goods. Let me help you about my story. My story is simple. When I came to Antioch 13 years ago, the first thing I did is I told God, I don't want to depend upon the church, because if I depend upon the church to meet my needs, then I have to cater my sermons to what they want to hear. And I told God straight from the beginning. And God says, okay. My first year of pastoring, I had an engineering job, and I maintained my job because the church could not afford to give me what my job was already giving me. Trying to keep members is not going to get it. There's two processes for the church door. A door to come in and a door to go out. Everybody that comes in your church ain't meant to stay. So you got to make sure you keep the back door open to make room for the people who are coming in. Because disgruntled people in what we call worship is not worship. How can you worship an unseen God when you don't like the person you're sitting next to? How can you worship an unseen God when... So again, I got here, I did the work. God blessed me. They have a parsonage. How many of you live in a parsonage? Oh, y'all don't have a parsonage? How many of you, your churches have a parsonage? Oh, your church doesn't even have a parsonage? Yeah, y'all know what parsonage is? It's land owned by the church. A house where you can sit in. All right, okay. Well, I didn't move into the parsonage. I told them I cannot live in a place when you get tired of me, you're going to put me out. So I sold my co-op upstate, and I bought a brownstone. And then I took the money out of the brownstone, and I bought another house. Then I took the money out of the house and brought 2 Mercedes. Then I took the money out of the house and brought a Corvette. Gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it, gotta get it, get it. Owning land helps you to get everything that you need. So therefore, the church don't have to pay for anything you got. When I walk away with all my houses, all the cars that I got, and I didn't have to pimp the people. To get what I got. They don't buy my clothes. They don't do anything.
They don't clean your clothes.
Now watch. We went from a deficit. We went from a deficit. That means that they were in the red The church was in the red. Y'all want to grow, y'all don't want to grow. The church was in the red. I told God, I can't depend upon the church to meet my needs. If you called me for this purpose, then you have to provide for me. Yeah, see, that's not, see, y'all don't live by faith, y'all live by sight. That's why when you apply for the job, you ask them before you get the job, how much you paying. Some of y'all only in your church based upon the money that you're getting.
All right.
Because if you're called to ministry, you're not called with a price. You're called empty-handed and God will provide. Somebody scream, God will provide. See, I need you to walk away here empowered. So we know that Constantine was the first one in 300 that established what church slowly gained cultural dominance in the political process. That's why it's important that you can be able to speak. I'm going to give it a transition. I'm going to help you. If Christians cannot control the law and the politics, anything happens. That's why everybody's getting married. Everything is getting married. And some of you will marry the same people that you are sitting here saying that it is not true. That man and man is not supposed to get married. And some of you are going to end up marrying them. Because you want to keep your license. Yeah, y'all want to keep you want to keep your accreditation. Okay, that's what people say. No way. But if they pay you, Christians should be involved in the political process. Why? Because every law and legislation that is written because there are people who are fighting to get that law. And if the Christians sit back and we're quiet on every issue, but every issue, gay rights, we sat quiet. We allowed it to happen. Prayer out of school, we sat back. Your children are going to hell in a handbasket, and you up there speaking in tongues, falling out, and leaving the church with no power. Because we have downgraded the Holy Spirit to a jump and a shout with no power. Tell me the Holy Spirit made me jump. No. I tell people all the time, if the music is good, dance. When the music stops and it's not good, sit down. Tell me I ain't got control of myself. What do you mean you ain't got control of yourself? If somebody slapped you, you would come out the spirit. The Bible said try the spirit by the spirit, because if you was in the spirit and somebody slapped you, you wouldn't come out of the spirit. You would stay right there, hucklebucking and falling out. But I guarantee you, you want to try the spirit by the spirit, the next person jumping your shout, you say sit down, and they don't sit down, slap them. I guarantee you, they will come out of whatever they're in. The Bill of Rights, right? Freedom of what? Speech, press, religion, petition. We have been quiet. Quiet, sitting back, waiting for the world to dictate to us what to do. What to accept, how to worship. You can no longer in New York City, they still got a bill up there saying that you can't even worship in public schools no more. But everybody else can go to public schools because it's a public space. Gay and lesbians can go right up in there and have a party and do whatever, but churches can't go into the public schools to worship. Congress says that there shall be no what? Law, what? Respecting what? And established and prohibiting what? The free exercise, bridging the what? Freedom of what? Or what? Or what? To do what? But they would rather for us to be rioting than coming together peacefully. The first amendment passed in the United States of the House of Representatives, September 1789. Many of the churches in America who organized what? A 501c3 taxes. And here's the catch on this. Johnson, although Johnson prohibited or pre-offered that there is a favor to churches of the 501c3. Watch this. One needs to not look far for the devastating effects of 501c3 for the church. I want you to deal with church. There has to be what we call, Jefferson made a statement. It's not a law, what he said about church and state. There's a separation of churches. It's not a law. It's a statement that Jefferson made. But we have taken it as a part, that's why we're hindered. We can't move. We can't do nothing. For a 501c3 church to openly speak out, organize in opposition to anything that the government declares legal, even if it's what? Immoral, abortion, homosexuality, same-sex marriages, the church will jeopardize its tax-exempt status. Y'all know LBJ, right? Uzi, Lyndon. He was the first one that studied because he was cunning and shrewd.
That's right.
And I know somebody said, but y'all know he was a Jew. He was Jewish. Y'all didn't know that, did y'all? Oh, okay. Have y'all not know why society has created so much space for other cultures? And why they're able to operate in New York City? I don't know about y'all, but they buy up everything. They're living everywhere. Come on, Bishop, talk with me. I know I'm not the only one. They own areas that we could not even get. When we turn around and look around, they're living right next door. Matter of fact, they don't even want to live, they just want to buy your house. I know my time. But when you get a 501c3, watch this. Religion cannot be free if we have to pay the government through taxation to exercise it. Since churches are what? Aren't taxable in the first place, so why do so many of them go to the IRS seeking permission for tax exempt? You need a 501c3 outside of the church. We have two. We have a development corp tax exempt, and we have a community service tax exempt. That's why when I'm in my church, I can preach like I feel. If the director of the choir gets up and pranks around, I can tell him, sit down. Okay, y'all not getting it. That's why some of y'all afraid of the people. Everybody that come in your church ain't meant for you. The Bible says in the book of Corinthians that the devil places his ministers in the middle of your congregation. And while you're trying to grow, they got people going. Every time you turn around, Sister So-and-so is upset with Sister So-and-so. She's not good. Do you not know everybody will leave your church but the devil? The devil never goes nowhere. They want everybody it because you got a title that you don't know you preaching to the devil who will never be changed. Until we, and I'm going because I know Bruce got the 5 minutes, I want to respect Bruce. Now watch this. Until we get the house in order, the in-house in order, then the out-house will always take advantage of who we are. Until we get the in-house in order, the out-house will always take advantage of who we are. Because they know that we're not in order. They know that we're not on one accord. Because they know that we don't come for one purpose. God can't be everything to all people. He came for those who will accept him. And if you did not accept him, hell has enlarged itself. Well, who is going to hell then? If hell has enlarged itself, somebody's got to go. Y'all not getting it? It's enlarging it day by day. And guess what? There's going to be bishops there, apostles there, prophets there, teachers there. There's going to be false people there who have deceived God's people. Let me get my moving, I'm going. Church needs not to apply. You don't have to apply for the, watch this form. Get this number down, form 1023. You don't have to apply for it. 1023, because you're already tax exempt. According to IRS code 508 C1A, you're already automatic tax exempt. But with 501c3 on your church, there's a mandate. There's some rules. Churches are automatic tax exempt. The mandate. Waivers, when you get a 501c3 on your church, it waivers your freedom of speech, religion, influence of legislation, because we got crazy people writing crazy laws for crazy people. And we're sitting there preaching. Half of the people in our congregation don't vote. They don't vote. So you want to change government, but you don't want to vote. But I need the government to help me with my after school and my seniors, but you ain't voting. The average person we put in don't do nothing for our community. Average person that we vote for do nothing for our community. Are you a church or a cult? Because you're not walking in your calling. What are you called to do? How many apostles we have here? Everybody know what an apostle is? How many of y'all seen God? You've seen him. You did what Apostle Paul did. You had a Damascus experience. Y'all know that? You had a Damascus experience. You got blind. Because the Bible says, no man have seen God and lived. Moses had to walk backwards. Don't play with me. Moses had to walk backwards to see God. Paul could not even stand to see God. He was blind. How many bishops we got? Everybody know what Timothy did, because Timothy wanted to be an apostle. Y'all know that in the book of Timothy and Titus. He wanted to be an apostle, and Paul says you can't be one. You have to go through a formality before you become an apostle. There's no more apostles, so now you have to take the office of a bishop. So taking the office of a bishop, you can do the same thing as apostles do, is set up churches. That means setting up churches is not having 3 people in one building and you got 5 apostles on the pulpit. That is not a a church. That is a prayer meeting. Matter of fact, that is a lunch date. You need to close up and stop having Sunday school and go back to the calling. Every pastor is not a teacher. Every teacher is not a prophet. Every bishop is not an apostle. You got to know what your calling is. In order for that world to be right, the church has got to get right. And if the church ain't right, and we confused and crazy, it's just walking your calling. That's why I tell people. People tell me all the time, I want you to be a bishop. I said, no, you don't. I'm not running around setting up churches. I'm trying to be a pastor who has an evangelist experience, who is a teacher. Because the fivefold ministry, there's only one office, but four ministries. The office is apostle, but the ministry is pastor, prophet, teacher, and evangelist. Don't confuse your ministry with your calling. Everybody that teaches is not a pastor. You're a teacher. My time is up. No, my time is up. But we talking about kingdom building. Don't let this go without God's kingdom building. You are a part of the process of kingdom building. We have to get us together to get them together. And if we're not together, so that's why every winning doctrine can come your way and you just sway. Stand on the foundation of the Word of God. God bless you.
Anybody here been baptized?